Game number 2, picks and bans on the way, and we'll see how everybody adjusts or adapts. And OutCold Gaming will have the first selection, of course, the first ban as well.
Spudio did a good job, I would say, that last game on the Jing way. He was able to have that level lead over StreakUp for majority of the game, but he never really amounted much to it, the objective control or anything like that. And I think that maybe, if anything, OutCold Gaming could lean on that dual lane matchup, because with that kind of a level lead, you would want to have more goal feeders under yourselves to be able to control the pacing in that game.
Got to be able to find that spatial, the space to allow your dual lane to do that, though. And of course, that means getting out of the early game. Bans coming out. No Poseidon, says OutCold Gaming. The mid lane Kraken man seemed a little too much. And no Artio, no Merlin. So are they still on the board here for OutCold Gaming if they choose to go in that direction?
And that's calculated, because with Merlin and Arthur up, Simplicity could have banned neither if they really wanted to guarantee themselves at least one of those two picks. But Simplicity probably want to go for something even more aggressive than the Arthur in the solo lane.
Well, the Jormungandr going to be coming out here for Simplicity. Could be the solo, could be support, could be middle lane for all we know. We'll keep an eye on it. But I do think that the solo is kind of where Jormungandr really shines.
That's right. Because of his ability to transition to the highest level of the game, Jormungandr with offensive/defensive hybrid items goes a long way in diving these backlines with the World Serpent.
Fafnir going to repeat his role here in the support. So a nice look there. They won last game, so might as well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Stick to it. Jing Wei one more time. Totally talked about how good the Jing Wei looked for OutCold Gaming despite the loss, so we'll see that Hunter return. And Bacchus will come here as well. So a lot of burst damage here from the support.
Very aggressive, and with double knockouts from Jing Wei and Bacchus, if I'm Simplicity, I'm thinking maybe ban away the Willish, trying to worry about that kind of synergy. And if I'm OutCold Gaming, I'm trying to lock that in for myself.
Well, last pick here in the first half of the draft, and Jormungandr Fafnir already selected. Could look for the jungler, could look for the mid laner as well, and it will be the jungler. Serqet comes through, the assassin of choice here for Simplicity. A nice look, tons of mobility, tons of damage as well.
When you're looking at ways to kill tanks that are very resilient, such as Bacchus with his passive giving damage mitigation, you're looking at Serqet and Nemesis. Those are your number 1/2, specifically with the true damage from the last breath, the percent damage bonuses from the passive basic attack. So I like this choice. The question is, where is Simplicity going to put this Serqet? Is it going to go support, jungle? We don't really know quite yet. But with the Fafnir selected, actually, this leads me to believe things are going to be pretty standard in the front line with Fafnir support, Jormungandr solo, Serqet jungle.
Each team looking towards the mid lane as Nua and Zeus is banned out. No Jungle Monkey and no Ram. Excuse me. StreakUp looked a little too strong on it last time, so Chernobog will be the carry of choice here for Simplicity, leaving them open for a mid laner. We'll see which direction they walk in there. OutCold Gaming, on the other hand, they'll pick themselves up a Robin, likely to be in the hands of the jungler, and now OutCold Gaming looking for a mid lane for PrettyPriMe. We'll go back to the classic. PrettyPriMe made a name for himself half a decade ago on the Vulcan, and here he is doing it again.
That's right, actually 5 years ago to this day almost, where he was in that Worlds Finals up against Cognitive Prime. A good performance by him overall in that best-of-5 set, but today he's going to be up against, it looks like, a Chronos, unless that's Chernobog mid and Chronos duel.
Could be. Could absolutely come out in that direction. DeathPanter is certainly a Hunter player, but Simplicity with one, OutCold Gaming with none. Chronos is here, so you know I got to say it. Let's go.
Chronos, not the only one to be excited about. King Arthur also made it through in this game to be first picked over there for OutCold. And I've got to imagine they're going to be sliding that one over into the hands of Dimi. No reason not to give it to him. As StreakUp is indeed going to be playing it. It's actually the double basic attack composition when you count in that Chernobog, so very interesting matchup. We've seen this Jormungandr kind of actually handle the King Arthur a couple of times. Is it because he's magical? Is it because of the slows? Do you think there's anything that gives him this matchup?
Slows and clear. maniaK's got plenty of damage, I think, on this Jormungandr that he'll be able to fare decently against the King Arthur. I'm not going to say that he can match the sustain or anything like that, but Dimi on the King might not be as threatening as you initially believed. Also, Jormungandr can't get knocked up.
That is a big advantage for him in this matchup as well, so one more thing to consider. Really can't be displaced at all, is the way they speak about him. He's immovable. Instead, he gets that daze or he takes additional damage. So certainly you still get some benefit out of it, but in a lot of cases it's not quite as good, you know, because instead of just dazing him, you'd rather nausea him up into the air, you know, and stuff like that. So certainly is strong, our World Serpent.
Have to just wait and see how Simplicity choose to try and tackle Dimi once those true team fights begin breaking out. But as it currently stands, Breeze already given thought to possibly invading Simplicity's blue buff. maniaK and Genetics still haven't had a chance to go and try to confirm their own. Same case scenario though for Breeze and Dimi. In fact, maniaK and Genetics not even bothering with finishing off the clear for the last couple of minions there. They're expecting a brawl now at their blue.
Well, Breeze and Dimi kind of force maniaK and Genetics to step out of the tower line and then trap them. Now Genetics is forced to use Shell because of a good sandwich. Faeles has moved in and started pulling the blue buff. That means now he's committed and taking extra damage. The buff itself goes down, Faeles is out, and OutCold Gaming fall back.
Smart play from Faeles to not even bother with looking for a possible flank opportunity. Better off just confirming that blue buff. It's going to be tough, even for King Arthur and a Bacchus, to out-confirm or out-secure a Serqet with that Deathbane.
It's such good clear. You're not wrong, man. Sometimes you almost forget, unless you're in there playing with her, how well she's able to clear. But Taco, I've been wanting to ask, I mean, how have you felt about Breeze here? Because he is that new look for OutCold in the support role. From what I saw in Game 1, I don't think he really hurt the team at all. In fact, I think there were a couple plays he made that looked really strong for them. So to come in, especially with big names like Prime and Dimi and Spudio, I think he's done well.
I don't think that there's really any faults that we can think of, even in that last game.
Exactly,
despite the fact that Simplicity lost in the last game, I don't think that it was because Breeze did anything horribly wrong. There just wasn't really a whole lot that he could do, but that's not his fault that OutCold are just on point.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that they could be happy with how he's looked so far and try and build on it. I guess as happy as you can be in a loss as well. So they know they can keep trying to look forward. And again, this is up against a very strong team here in Simplicity that they're trying to compare themselves with a different look. They hadn't been able to quite rise up to the level we expected for them. They never got Emilito on the team. So, you know, they've been working a lot to try and solidify this roster. Hopefully Breeze is that look.
OutCold Gaming, it's just been a series of unfortunate events,
yes.
I think, as far as this team is concerned. When the roster was initially announced, everybody was on the hype train for OutCold. I mean, it looked sick.
It was supposed to be them and Armada, right? Armada in North America and then them here in Europe. Yeah.
Exactly, and then Emilito, you know, has some difficulties or just is unable to really make it, can't be a supporting member for this team like initially planned up, and so OutCold have to improvise. And they've been improvising up until they found Breeze, I feel.
It has certainly felt that way, and they're going to keep it going. As these supports over in the solo lane, that continues to be the early strategy. Taco, talk to me some about why you think that's where the supports have kind of rounded out. Because they started out invading speed, and we saw them some hanging out in mid, and now here they are just kind of splitting the solo lane farm.
SMITE's kind of wide open right now in terms of where you want to choose to spread your pressure. And I think the primary reason we see the supports in the solo lane for both these teams is just because of the fact they're both trying to play off of maniaK and Dimi, arguably two of the strongest points for
sure.
both of these teams. And so if either Dimi or maniaK gets a lead, it's not a whole lot typically that can stand in the way of either of those players. They're both very talented mechanically and decision-making wise, so I would want to give Dimi and maniaK as much of a lead as possible.
I certainly would too. These are both highlight-making players, so certainly nothing wrong with giving them a bit of a start. I wonder, too, if you can successfully get some pressure over here and steal blue, steal some of these back harpies, that does set behind the enemy jungler, too. So maybe it's a chance to come over here and slow down some of the farm that's really accelerating the other team, like the solo lane and the jungler, if you can find that pressure. So far, though, it's just been a 2v2 slapfest, and no one's really gotten much of anything.
And then that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. But hey, if a 2v2 slapfest is what it takes so that Jing and Chronos both get to respectively free farm,
oh yeah,
I doubt that OutCold or Simplicity are all that beat up about it. This is the ideal case scenario, I think, for both of these teams, because the Hunter's being left alone due to all the, oh, hold that thought though, Faeles trying to go in. Deathbane and Cobra's Kiss both gonna be off the mark there. But PrettyPriMe on his signature Vulcan, not gonna miss those meatballs.
That's right, Prime on the Vulcan. Comfort pick if there ever were one. Certainly one he can play quite well. And as you said, made easier when some of the stuff Faeles is trying to do doesn't quite connect anyway, so you know, not nearly as much pressure as normally. But Faeles is going to have plenty more times to look for those aggressions. There was just a kind of a spur-of-the-moment grouping there. I think it was about around Oracles is what they were looking for. And Faeles commits the blink and unfortunately can't quite find it. So he'll be slightly less aggressive likely until that's back up.
It's a little bit of a different composition, but the theory behind it is still the same in my mind, Finch. Simplicity have an objective burning squad. They are going to shred right through tanks, any front line, any objective, just like Faeles is trying to shred through Dimi, but he's going to be the one taken up into the air instead. maniaKK going to invest into the Whirlworm, but DeathPanter's rotation, it is a living nightmare for Dimi.
It absolutely is. First blood goes the way of Simplicity, and we might have buried the lead on this one, Taco. Yes, they have this attack speed focused composition for the late game, but in this early to mid game during the laning phase, they got a ton of rotational ability. maniaKK, though, doesn't have anywhere to go now that he's used the ultimate. That means FrostiaK can rotate over with some help from Breeze and find a nice return kill. Though Prime might be in trouble too. Just not quite enough from Genetics. Oh no, it is! He walked away! Cool guys don't look at explosions.
Got the dot tick. That's all exactly he needed, man. PrettyPriMe tried his best. Almost had the outplay opportunity there, but Genetics knowing better. And I love that respect that Genetics gave PrettyPriMe as well. Of course, I'm pretty sure Genetics assumed that PrettyPriMe was dead, but he wasn't going to take the chance.
Definitely not going to risk it as FrostiaK can't quite strip away the red buff. But all of a sudden there was action all across the map. And that just was so much damage from FrostiaK and Breeze. And it can be the one problem. We'll hold our thought. Breeze blows away like a summer breeze. He's long gone. Faeles takes care of him on the Serqet in middle lane. But this Jormungandr can feel kind of vulnerable when he doesn't have the ultimate, Taco. And Breeze and FrostiaK just punish that.
Oh, my favorite part was watching maniaKK for a second try to do the little stutter step, and then you realize that you're playing Jormungandr,
oh, wait,
and there is no stutter step.
I'm giant.
You're just a giant hitbox waiting to be killed. But I don't think that it was necessarily maniaKK not having much of an escape clause so much as it was Breeze and FrostiaK kind of just understanding if we just all in him, he is no ult. He really is just a sitting duck like you mentioned, Finch. But even still, with that in mind, maniaKK's going to continue investing towards this hybrid type of build, I'm pretty sure, where he's going to mostly like to prioritize like cooldowns and possibly even add on some damage and tankiness. That way he can just absorb everything and really just like to slow down Dimi.
I think he'll probably be staying in that hybrid state as well. Jorm's damage is nothing to scoff at, and we've seen them kind of flexing into a bit of damage too. Even Zero's going as far as to move beyond flexing and just straight up build damage in the middle lane. So certainly there's some value to be had in getting a little bit extra power online for this guy. But Faeles, he wants to try and start some action here. Great route immediately there from Breeze, or rather from coming out from FrostiaK to slow down Faeles. Big ultimate over the top, doesn't hit either one. So immediately Faeles forced into that ultimate. He has no more movement available though. He's a sitting duck and Spudio puts him down.
Nice collapse from the rest of OutCold Gaming to really ensure that Faeles has no chance to survive there. But as for the rest of OutCold Gaming, I'm honestly a little bit surprised, or as for Simplicity, I'm a little surprised at the way that Faeles chose to branch off.
FrostiaK though, overhead kick lets him get right through the stun from StreakUp. And he does just barely make it out of there. That was critical for him to be able to make it out of there without using any cooldowns.
You know when you can't tell if somebody's in danger, and so you kind of just want to see what happens next?
Yeah. Sometimes it's really clear, though, like Ralph on the back of the bus from that Simpsons meme where he's like, I'm in danger. That one's really clear. But you're right, sometimes it's less clear.
I'm not sure that Spudio is really in danger for OutCold, or StreakUp was really in danger even. I think that OutCold are going to have a really tough time if they continue to look for ganks over in that duo lane. And the same could be said for both of these teams. Trying to kill a Jing lane, trying to kill a Chronos is just, it's like watching paint dry, man. They just have so many lives to run away with that I think it'll be pretty tough. And that's also part of the reason why I think we see both of these teams kind of revolving around this solo lane play.
I wonder if it was made easier by the fact that DeathPanter had already used the ultimate. Maybe that's why they thought they had a good opportunity. But FrostiaK played about as well as he could. He overhead kicked right through the stun and still couldn't stay close enough to actually lock him down. So it's not an easy task killing this Chronos. And in this kind of meta where the Hunters have all this time, Taco, to farm to themselves, and they are going to be a bit ahead. They're both 12, the highest level in the game. Something like a Chronos feels like the right thing to put over there.
For sure, and not only that, but I like what Spudio was trying to do in response to StreakUp being on the Chronos ADC. He's rushing crit,
Probably
not
rage,
looking
right?
for that Odysseus bow third item. Instead, you're right on the money, Finch. I'm pretty sure it's got to be a rage. You need that crit chance if you want to successfully kill StreakUp in time.
That's a great point. He should be able to blow him up without much problem. In fact, really, if maniaK goes kind of hybrid like we expect, and then you consider the Hunter Serqet, he's got some decent targets to blow up with this crit damage on this Jing Wei, who builds into it rather nicely anyway. So not a bad idea from Spudio at all to elect to go into this build.
OutCold, kind of toying with the possibility of pulling goal 3, but instead everybody's just going to disperse, and this is bearing a pretty similar vibe to the first game. Finch had a little bit of action right out the bat, but now things have definitely slowed down in pacing.
It has, and I'm surprised. Simplicity are the ones, we kind of talked about it, right? How they have these 2 game plans they can execute kind of in lane. In the early mid-game, they've got this rotational ability that OutCold can't match with the Jormungandr and the Chernobog. But then in the late game, they have, you know, double basic attackers with the attack speed from genetics coming through on the Fafnir. So they definitely have good presence and a good clear game plan in both stages, but we haven't really seen them look for too many ganks.
And that's the thing, though, is that this is 2 games in a row now where I feel FrostiaK has gone for a really aggressive jungler option like the Ratatoskr or the Ravana, and yet been unable to find those gank opportunities because of how safely Simplicity are playing out their laning phase. Now OutCold Gaming trying to take this goal for their own. PrettyPriMe going to invest the Earthshaker forward, and it is good to go so far, but the same can't be said for Simplicity because they're on the run.
The damage, though, coming through from Faeles is way too strong. Breeze goes down, some help from StreakUp cleans that up, and now the World Serpent trying to lock down FrostiaK. Good jukes, though, to catch him off guard, but he's got one more charge. Can't quite lock him down, so FrostiaK makes it out of there, and now maniaK might be a little bit too far forward, but the Gold Fury does go down for OutCold before all that even happens.
Simplicity just weren't in position in time, and I'm surprised that I even have to say that because DeathPanter dropped the Living Nightmare to try and make it over in time after Simplicity realized that it was going down, but OutCold, they do have, I think, better chances of matching that objective shred in Game 2 because of the Vulcan.
That is very good confirmed for them, one that I don't think can be matched by Simplicity unless we see some Tricks tank level Jormungandr around the Fire Giant. Very likely they'll have the best secure on that objective. But I like what we saw from Faeles there. My man DeathPanter was dead to rights. He'd already used the ultimate. He dashes into the wall and he's hiding out, and Faeles just blinks over, Cobra's Kiss into Deathbane onto 2, and that's too much damage. They can't focus on Chernobog anymore, and DeathPanter makes it out. And they at least find 1 return kill on the back of losing the objective, but that's still a good fight for OutCold.
The unsung hero, though, for Faeles there on that last play was genetics. That shell timing and his patience on holding the shell saved Faeles' life. PrettyPrime's turret almost got the job done, but because it had to absorb that shell blow, Simplicity are able to just find the pick. But a pick in comparison to a Gold Fury, I don't think OutCold can be too upset.
No, I don't think so either. I think that it's still definitely a win for them. And now they've got genetics in their sights, but he's able to underhand tactics away before he gets flopped up by Breeze, and the Pyromancer avoids all of the combat. Overall, it makes their way back out. But it's OutCold who has surprisingly pulled the trigger a little bit first on forcing down that objective. I suppose, as you pointed out, they're the ones with the confirm from Prime, so why not?
I think that OutCold started to realize that if they're not the ones starting up these objectives, it's going to make things all too easy for Simplicity to simultaneously farm for free and then choose what engagements they want to take after everybody's already level 20 in full build.
That's what we saw work so well for them last game, and OutCold refused to allow that same pace to happen. Faeles has picked Dimi, of all people, as his target. He is able to shred through those prods, and maniaK here to deal some magic damage that he's not defensive against just yet. But now the rest of the squad is here. Breeze forces the ultimate by landing the knockup, and now the World Serpent, that much less of a threat.
Surprised to see maniaK look for the World Serpent so early on, though, considering the fact that yeah, Breeze lands the belly flop, but it's Jorm. He's not going up in the air anytime soon.
That's a good point.
I think that maniaKK was just expecting there to be further initiation or engagement from OutCold Gaming, because oftentimes in competitive levels of play, if a Bacchus is flopping in on you, it means somebody else is usually there to follow it up.
It does very often mean that there's going to be some backup once he lands this, so no reason, or I definitely understand why maniaKK was reflexive there and got out of there. Even if he doesn't get knocked up, he still is dazed and taking a bunch of extra damage, so he just wanted to make sure that he wasn't in too much trouble. I mean, I can't stop thinking about how great hunters have it nowadays, man. Both 1-0-0, level 17, and time to farm all day.
Look, Finch, this is a competitive play exclusive, okay? This is not what you should expect to happen in your ranked games. You are not going to be left alone in that duo lane. Do not let Spudio and StreakUp fool you.
Not at all. They've maybe had 1 or 2 gank attempts over there, but for the most part, it's been a cushy life as they both try and farm quickly towards that late game Rage, followed up by the Executioner for Spudio, Bancross into the Demonic Grip for StreakUp. So they're both starting to get to a good spot. Even has a little bit of physical prods to help out as well.
That Death Bane damage is pretty nasty, though, onto FrostiaK. That was just the Death Bane. I don't even think Faeles got an auto attack off onto Frosty and was still able to bring him down to just above that 50% health threshold. And with that force out, FrostiaK not as healthy as he'd like to be, so Simplicity just looked for the Pyromancer.
OutCold steal it away, though. PrettyPriMe with the damage from range. Take that one from him. I mean, even without the ultimate, it's hard to out-secure a Vulcan, man. He's a mage.
You think PrettyPriMe gets a passive every time he uses the skin that was made for him on
exactly.
Vulcan?
He gets a little bit of extra for that old-school Titan one. That's what that is, right? Titan Vulcan?
Yep.
Yep, that old-school Titan Vulcan skin, man.
10% damage passive, man. Yeah, didn't we have this conversation with the player yesterday from console? Wolves. That's who it was.
Wolves, yeah.
The Wolves passive where he, for whatever reason, does more damage, just like Dimi is trying to do some damage on the Faeles.
But StreakUp is here to follow up. Last Breath locks him down, and these 2 magical damage dealers have too much damage, but Oni Fury is also under siege. OutCold secure that objective, but now can they make it back out with their lives? FrostiaK has to Mystic Rush defensively. Cobra's Kiss off the mark, but they jump away from the big ultimate that sets up StreakUp to take down Breeze. FrostiaK falls to the pressure from maniaKK, and a 1 fight now from Simplicity on the back end.
Good crits from Spudio, but it's just not enough. All of Simplicity is still alive and good to go. 20 seconds is the soonest that Dimi and Breeze will be able to join the action yet again, but with StreakUp and DeathPanter being so healthy, they're just going to push down the mid lane, understanding that it's probably not enough time to look for a Fire Giant. Might be a little bit too soon still, but there were a lot. Well, actually, it's mostly just cooldowns. Not many relics used on the side of OutCold Gaming.
No, not at all, so they can at least still be relevant if there aren't any more fights, since they do have just about everything still available to them. Not quite level 12 yet is Breeze, so he's not going to have a second relic for himself. But whoa, Simplicity. Considering this Fire Giant, they have it pulled and down low. It's not enhanced yet, so it won't be as difficult to take, but this feels more like a bait. They can't afford to stick on this one, not with OutCold nearby.
This is a toss-up. As long as PrettyPriMe is alive, Simplicity aren't going to be able to feel comfortable pulling that Fire Giant. They're going to have to take care of this Vulcan first, or at least ensure that the entirety of OutCold is taken care of. So if PrettyPriMe is the lone survivor, it won't really matter because you can zone away a single Vulcan.
Sneaky Sneck, though, comes up from underneath the ground, and maniaKK puts in a bunch of damage onto Breeze. The second hit doesn't land, but this knockup on the Spudio is good. But a big ultimate over the top from Vulcan really only chunks down genetics. FrostiaK is low and has that last breath there, but the shell keeps him topped off. Dimi keeps right on spinning, but StreakUp says you've run out of time, drops down to stun, but it's maniaKK who's locked in. Dimi has a stun of his own with the ultimate and cuts down the snake.
Simplicity gotta be careful here. This defense for the T1 tower proven to not be super worth it, as OutCold Gaming gonna make quick work of maniaKK and that T1. Possibly even have a power play opportunity here on this Fire Giant, but it's still a risky move from OutCold.
Taco, they're absolutely pulling this one. They're going to send Breeze up to go contest and make sure no one's getting in, as the Fire Giant's down to half HP already. But this will be very, very close. Genetics is now here and has Draconic Corruption to try and contest, but the hammer's blocked. But Simplicity, no, they're the ones that grab the objective somehow and some way. Genetics makes it up into the ultimate. He's not going to be able to make it out, but I think it's worth it. Fire Giant stripped away from OutCold at the last minute.
It wasn't the hammer.
It was not.
I think StreakUp might have made it in time for a time rift.
That
That's
might
the
have been
only thing I can
enough.
think of.
Is there a chance he still got underhanded tactics off maybe in that contest as well from the Fafnir? Like he had the leap? That was very, very close. I can't believe Simplicity got that one.
I don't think OutCold can even believe that Simplicity got that Fire Giant. OutCold, I think, also needed that Fire Giant to continue their momentum swing, but that just stops them dead in their tracks. They get this beautiful pick onto maniaKK in the mid lane, capitalize by turning that into a T1 tower shove, which opens up the map enough so to try and deter Simplicity, I think, from looking for that Fire Giant contest. I am honestly in awe at the fact that whether it was Genetics or StreakUp, either way, one of them saved Simplicity for at least a little bit, or at least they saved Simplicity from OutCold getting a dominating lead.
That's right. Now it's Simplicity with a chance to consider the siege. And remember, they're quite good at it between the Chronos and the Chernobog, so OutCold gonna need to play this defense very, very well if they want to shut down some of this pressure that's going to be coming their way. But they might not even have the chance. Dimi has already been locked down, avoids, though, the stun coming out from StreakUp. FrostiaK, though, lurking in the jungle along with Breeze. They're looking to jump in. Breeze goes in first to daze maniaKK, but he immediately responds with the ultimate. But from the positioning of the rest of the team, Simplicity are done here.
Faeles still is yet to join up with the rest of Simplicity. Not sure that OutCold Gaming even has eyes on Faeles, but for now, Simplicity will choose to take the retreat, but I think this could be a bait finch. I think they're trying to trap OutCold into a choke point.
They come up towards the Pyromancer and consider grabbing this objective. Remember, Fire Giant still on Faeles, DeathPanter, and StreakUp. Some of the priority targets. OutCold at least secure the Pyro, and Dimi should be out of there. Simplicity nearby, but not heavily committing by any means, though they're considering a resurgence of their own.
Simplicity went ahead, and I think maniaKK was just focused on pushing up the wave, get the creeps back in their favor, see if they can maybe continue to chip away at this T2 tower. They don't need a whole lot of time, just a couple seconds at best for StreakUp and DeathPanter to get a few in-hands in, and that tower is toast.
Just needs to buy a little bit of time. Hammer lands onto Dimi. Chernobog can't find the route to follow up, but Chronos can step in and throw a few shots. Meanwhile, Faeles and Jormungandr have FrostiaK busy on left-hand side. Overhand kick is forced out, and Simplicity still stalled at this tier 2. They have not quite been able to force their way in. Though I did hear they took another look at it backstage for us, and from the best they can tell, they're thinking that it was Genetics with the underhand tactics to try and grab it.
That's just unreal, though. That Genetics would be able to slide through a Fafnir.
Well, even if he couldn't get
FG.
past, wouldn't he do some damage just beyond it as well? Maybe that's what it was?
Yes, but it's mostly just the fact that Genetics was able to get in there to do that, and that was part of the risk that Simplicity took when initially pulling that Fire Giant, because Dimi wasn't super healthy and neither was Breeze. They were both just healthy enough, I think, to start the objective, but
Insane, man.
unfortunate as well for OutCold.
Unlucky.
That's a huge blow, but OutCold have done a fantastic job at defending their towers after the fact. With only 3 members from Simplicity actually rocking that Fire Giant, Simplicity has not felt super confident in their siege potential.
They've not yet felt very strong about it. They haven't been able to find very many picks or force out any relics, so it would be a heads-up fight, except the other team would have a tier 2 tower to help them out, so no surprise to see Simplicity playing it a little bit slow. Looks like the next time the Fire Giant spawns back in, Taco, it will be the enhanced version as well. So Simplicity now having lost their FG, that means we're about a minute or so, a little bit less than that away from the enhanced version rejoining us. And it looks like Simplicity will just take their chances fighting around that. They got very, very little off that buff.
Faeles, StreakUp, and Genetics, though, still hovering around this right side of the map. Fire Giant's due to respawn any second now, and this time it's going to be an enhanced Fire Giant for both of these teams to try and deal with. Simplicity, for what it's worth, though, I think have a better chance of just burning the objective outright. It's all about PrettyPriMe, though, with this Vulcan, but PrettyPriMe didn't have the confirmation last time, so what's to say that he's going to have it this time?
That's right. It's not guaranteed in favor of OutCold, man. These Fire Giant secures, not just the enhanced versions, man. The Fire Giants all across the board have been difficult for these teams to confirm. And some of them have been risky pulls. You know, that was not a huge lead for OutCold by any means when they went for that. That was guaranteed in their favor. But we're seeing it time and time again where it's hard to 100% guarantee you're going to grab this objective.
All of Simplicity now already starting to hover or move in, I should say. I thought they were just going to stick to hiding around inside of the Fire Giant. No, instead, it's all Simplicity on the move because they want Dimi. Dimi, knowing better, immediately blinks as soon as the Living Nightmare is invested.
That's important. That means now that he won't have that level of initiation, but so is Faeles is down. He blinked as well. So 1 for 1, though perhaps Faeles might even be more valuable. He'll be the one threatening Spudio and Prime in the back line for Simplicity. And won't have that same window in. He'll have to be quite sparing the way he uses his mobility.
maniaKK lurking underneath, hoping to pop up right on top of Breeze, but Breeze gonna belly flop away, knowing better. Whirlworm one more time, straight into the back line, trying to keep PrettyPriMe at bay, and it works. Dimi's isolated.
And he gets locked down by Serqet. Faeles, drops the ultimate. That's enough to lock him in place. FrostiaK ult in place, and so immediately they drop the Frenzy. Big ultimate, though, coming out for Prime. That rocks Genetics and the back line as well. Simplicity can't continue to push forward, but now that that ultimate's been baited out, maybe they feel comfortable doing the FG.
I don't think that's even where PrettyPriMe wanted to have to ult, but he had to ult in order to save the life of his jungler. FrostiaK with a super questionable up down there with the Mystic Rush. I gotta say, he's definitely got some cojones for that one. That is a crazy move from FrostiaK to just straight up down.
Yeah, a bold call. And it nearly works out for him. I think he thought Faeles was committing even a little bit more than he was, and that would have been the turnaround that he needed, but just wasn't quite there. Though, Simplicity have waited long enough now, Taco, to move into this next fight that Dimi will be up for it. Even if they start it now, he'll teleport right in.
Isn't it nice, though, just thinking of the fact that PrettyPriMe is such an experienced mage. He just knows to drop the Earthshaker for his teammate to survive.
Yeah, Prime's nuts. Breeze in some trouble. He's going to go the same way Dimi went last time. maniaKK does pay for it with some HP and fails his ultimate, but a very, very clean pick. And maniaKK will not have that same option to teleport back in. He'll have to settle for this buff from the Pyromancer around the fountain to give him the extra movement speed.
Poor Breeze, man. He didn't even get a chance to get off the Intoxicate, so that little extra bit of damage that might have helped out further engagement from OutCold.
The wine might not have hurt either.
It's just not going to be possible, though. Breeze is just getting controlled before he can even have a chance to do anything.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. What Simplicity has realized is that these front lines, they're getting shredded, particularly by Faeles and their ability to lock them down. So Dimi and Breeze can't safely go too far forward on their own, not up against this team, not even as far as normal. As Spudio's ultimate's forced out, he's knocked up and chunked by maniaKK's damage. maniaKK even harassing him further beyond the tier 2. He rejoins the squad, but the rest of his team not there. They've got to make sure they stick around to give him a path to get out of there. And so far, maniaKK just taking free damage from Dimi.
Dimi's got to be careful, though. OutCold is nearby, but maybe not as healthy as he would like. Spudio not even willing to back just yet, concerned that Simplicity are just going to take this enhanced Fire Giant if he does. So OutCold kind of being forced to stick around. Spudio will get a decent heal, though, off of the blue buff and still find a win of opportunity to back to base. But this is just so 50-50.
Yes.
Between, it really is more and more of a coin flip as the minutes go on, Finch, that I couldn't tell you who's going to actually come out on top here.
Well, even with Simplicity getting the pick onto Dimi and the pick onto Breeze, they didn't feel comfortable pulling the enhanced Fire Giant in the 5v4 and trying to force a fight. Not with Vulcan lurking in the shadows. So it's going to take way more for Simplicity, it seems like, to feel comfortable going for that. Hey, as soon as I say it, maybe it doesn't. But they might have some information. I mean, Jing Wei's not there, neither is FrostiaK. This might be their best fight. In fact, they're getting heavily zoned out by maniaKK. OutCold do grab the Primal Fury. They stayed on the objective, but now they've baited out the ultimate. from PrettyPriMe as well. They can go back in and continue the DPS. Simplicity secure the objective. Meanwhile, maniaKK has zoned Prime away. He's going to do more than zone. The shutter's enough, and Prime goes back to base in a box.
There's only so much that PrettyPriMe can do when he's got Genetics and maniaKK chasing him. Now Faeles trying to make some magic happen for the rest of Simplicity on the front side. Bree's going to be the first one caught in and
Slowed.
Completely taken out. DeathPanter damage just too much to handle.
It absolutely was. Now Simplicity with Fire Giant and all 5 members, and 2 members down for OutCold can keep up the push. Not even going to let Dimi back. I don't know what that was, but FrostiaK and Spudio weren't even around, and clearly Simplicity had the info. They just started burning.
Simplicity had vision, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, maybe they just assumed if OutCold aren't going to show up, hey, we're just going to pull this anyway. Dimi now at 30% health, got Faeles with him up in the air, but Dimi just needs to look for the escape. Without PrettyPriMe, it's tough stuff for OutCold to try and defend this mid-Phoenix.
And now they'll have a chance to resiege again. Frenzy popped as well, so they can burn through the mid-Phoenix incredibly quickly. maniaKK goes into the ultimate, but Simplicity's done with this engagement for now. Prime back up, Breeze just about to respawn as well. They got what they came for. Mid-Phoenix goes down, and Simplicity grab our first real lead of the game.
And that's all that they need. This is just like game 1, all over again, Finch. Simplicity find that breaching of OutCold Gaming's base, and now every single step after this for OutCold just has to be so careful. If OutCold don't play the rest of this match perfectly, Simplicity can just look for 1 to 3 picks ideally, and then hope for the collapse end.
It's what worked for them around that fight. And it really does feel like as much as just a numbers game. Prime didn't have as much information either about where the Fire Giant was, so he had to ult just a little bit too early. Simplicity plays very cleanly around that, and then DPS the objective to secure it for themselves. And they have plenty of lockdown. Breeze had no way to get out once he was stuck on the back end. I mean, Simplicity are showing that when they can finally get every piece to line up, this composition can be very scary.
This is just incredibly patient from Simplicity. I think that Simplicity could have definitely pulled the trigger a little bit sooner in terms of their initiations and like team findings and stuff, but I think they're just trying to play it safe. There's no rush for this team because they feel like they have control.
Well, they do have the Chronos, so there's truly no rush, right? It favors no one more to wait than that Chronos, whose passive means he just gets stronger and stronger as the game goes on. Now they're ready to resiege on the left-hand side. There's a tier 2 tower there that will certainly go down. No one from OutCold will be in position to defend. Prime should have his Aegis back up by the time the fight actually starts, so all the relics will be there. And don't forget, there's a ton of crit for Spudio on this Jing that could swing through at any moment.
But they need the RNG to be in their favor. And
is that
the
only
problem
2
for
rage
Spudio,
stacks?
Well, it's only 2 rage stacks, but he does have that Deathbringer and a Poison Star, so I doubt that it takes Spudio long to continue fully stacking that rage. The problem that I have with this is that how is Spudio going to attack StreakUp to begin with? Or even DeathPanter? This Jing is just getting pushed out further and further from the fight.
maniaKK goes right to the back line and harasses PrettyPriMe, then goes into the ultimate. Left side Phoenix exposed, and left side Phoenix goes down. The Jormungandr buys too much time, so maniaKK wants to punish on the back end. He jumps in aggressively, or rather it's FrostiaK, and he dies immediately. Gets blown up by maniaKK, and the damage from the carries. Now in some trouble is Dimi. Going forward aggressively is DeathPanter, and that shuts Dimi down. Next in trouble, Breeze. StreakUp on a rampage, finds 5 in a row, and that means just Prime and Spudio, just the carries left to keep this Titan standing, and I don't know if it's enough. They've got minions pouring in as well. Faeles, jumps right on Prime and keeps him locked down, and the Titan falls as well. Simplicity 2-0 OutCold.
Before maniaKK has a chance to die himself, I think that Titan would have made quick work of him, but that last little tidbit of the fight, Finch, felt awfully forced from FrostiaK. I'm not sure if he was maybe expecting his team to have been a little bit closer for some future follow-up. Even if they had been, I still think that he just dies in the same fashion that he did, and his team arguably might have even died a little bit sooner too.
It really looked like he felt like they were just getting whittled away and that they had to shoot their shot at some point or the ball would be taken away. Maybe that's what the call was from Frosty, but you're right. Either way, it didn't seem like they were quite on the same page, and he finds nothing on that push-in except for a quick death.
I love the way the Simplicity tackled that entire set, though. It was just so much patience from this team, something that I don't think we've seen a whole lot of up until now.
and it worked out for them. They slowly waited till they got every single opportunity, a pick on Dimi there, a pick on Breeze here, and eventually they were able to whittle away at those defenses. And by the way, Spudio and FrostiaK not being there for FG, that one's going to weigh on them, I think, for a while. That might have been that final window. Maybe the Death saw things differently, though. Let's get it back over to them for their thoughts.
I saw a win for Simplicity. I think that's how that one went. Salman Tully here breaking it down. And at the end of the day, I think Simplicity I like the word patient, I like the word tactical. I think they just played better Smite in game 2.
I think a lot of it also came down to the Serqet for Faeles playing a fantastic jungle role where he was locking people down, specifically the frontliners. It was Dimi and it was also Breeze that struggled against the Serqet. Every time the Fire Giant was pulled in the later stages, that Serqet was doing so much damage. The chain CC effect, Dimi without crowd control, immunity during it was just dead to rights.
Faeles has been really interesting to watch. He's a guy that's played in the Pro League and really didn't stand on his own 2 feet, if you ask me. I've always been kind of wanting more. He had some games, but it always felt like 1 out of 5 games were really, really strong for him. Faeles is the type of guy that comes down here to the minor league and I think kind of gets his reps in and has kind of been learning not learning, but just putting the time in at this level. And he feels more confident and more consistent because of it.
And because of the frontlining presence on the opposite side for OutCold Gaming, it was so aggressive between Arthur, between Bacchus, and also between Ravana.
Yeah.
But they were the ones getting engaged on. It feels like in the later stages at the least, like they couldn't get anything going in the late game because of the Serqet's jungle. So a great look from Faeles overall.
DeathPanter with the early rotation hits level 7 and then hits Dimi in the brain with the ultimate. That brings him over there to short side. And here's those moves from Faeles, just like you were said. Very, very aggressive. OutCold Gaming has a draft that wants to be starting the fight and do things on their own terms. And Simplicity did exactly what I think needs to be done. As I said, just better Smite by taking the bull by the horns and jumping right on in.
I love the Chernobog mid out of DeathPanter being able to rotate to that solo lane. And this was the steal, I believe, at the 20-minute mark. Genetics just actually taking it. I think it was the time stop through the wall coming out of StreakUp. That was well played.
The little short man jump, always fun to watch as well. So Fafnir coming through in the clutch there for Genetics. And the guys all over Simplicity just looking strong. European Minor League in the books here. Let's take a look at the snapshot of the league and see where everybody's standing. Up there on top, Flashpoint 6-1. Still have only lost 1 single match. Simplicity, though, with their victory, pushed to 4-3, and they'll stay in spot number 2.
Yeah, Flashpoint had a great first set of the day. In the second one, Simplicity with a 2-0 victory over OutCold Gaming, repeating their performance in that Week 5 matchup. Week 1, it was OutCold Gaming finding their victory, but a lot has been learned out of Simplicity.
So far, we've seen some good stuff here in Europe. I think Flashpoint's still, like you said, the top team here. Sure. What is it going to take for Europe to stop Flashpoint's reign of terror?
You know, banning out Kwang is a pretty good first step, I think. You know, it's the first step that you need to do. Just the first one.
Oh, Kwang, certainly one of the stronger picks available. But Europe is over for this week. Coming up next, we've got Cryptic versus SSG. But first, Armada takes on Sanguine.
The SMITE Minor League, brought to you by Skillshot. Hi-Res Studios. Titan Forge. INAP. Steel Series. And Respawn.